Get y'all notification right quick. I'm finna do a little 5 minute, 10 minute live with y'all real quick. Try to help somebody that done bought a truck for a CDL HotShot. And really I'm talking about maybe one truck in particular. But a lot of people buy their truck and don't know what they really were buying when they bought it. They just bought it because they said it needed to be a 3500, and we got a 3500. Give me a one in the comments if you can hear my audio pretty well. I'm finna put y'all up on some game that's gonna save you about $7,000. It just came to me, and I was like, they might need to know this because a lot of people make this mistake. All right, what the mistake is having a CDL first of all and buying a 3500. Mistake number one. CDL Class A 3500. Mistake. I don't give a damn if it's ice with 410s. Mistake. That's a mistake. You see a lot of people working real well, but that's a mistake. Trust me, that's a mistake. Because you can buy 5500 for about 15,000 less dollars and carry more weight. And the opposite word in payload is pay and load. You can be either one of them. Y'all don't matter how you look at it. You payload. Okay. But we ain't talking about that. We talking about for the people that went and bought the 3500 and didn't even know about the ICE transmission, or the salesman told you that the 6 to 8 RFE is gonna be sufficient to do what you told them you was about to do with this truck. And I'm gonna let you know, if you finna come out with a 6 to 8 RFE and a 3500 and you did not elect to get the 410 gear ratio, you already at a serious disadvantage. And you can feel it pulling heels with them 15,000 pounds on that trailer that you're trying to pull. So I'm gonna give y'all about 3, 4 good tips for a 6 to 8 IFE. And this goes for a guy that pulling non-CDL if you just want to make the transmission bulletproof. But there's a few areas that do need to be addressed in the years of the trucks from about 2010 on up to about 2018 and 19. Transcooler, yeah, but I'm gonna tell y'all really the transcooler, you can put an aftermarket one on there, but that's really not the root of the problem with that heat issue right there. First thing you want to do is eliminate, and they did in certain years, eliminate the thermostat bypass for the transmission fluid. The transmission fluid on the Ram Cummins has its own separate thermostat. Y'all probably never heard of a thermostat being anywhere but on the cooling system on your engine. But there is a thermostat that if you look down on the passenger side of that transmission, right behind the exhaust pipe, there's a small billet aluminum looking kind of metal aluminum block that your two lines go in and two lines come out. Two lines come out, go to the trans, the other two lines come out and go to the cooler. That block right there has a thermostat in it with a check ball in it that is spring operated and it's sensitive to heat. So in the morning times, what it does, it allows the transmission to warm up quicker. But it also provides a restriction in that line also. So at first, the cooler is not even being used. When the transmission warms up to a certain temperature, it opens and allows the transmission to be cool. But what we want to do is not get that transmission up to 190 degrees before that thing opens up. So what you want to do is eliminate that, and they have a simple pass-through block that doesn't have a check valve or anything in it, and it allows full cooler flow at all times. If you live in a really cold area, you might not want to do that one thing right by the exhaust pipe. Yes, sir. That's crazy too, ain't it? It's right there by the exhaust pipe. But yeah, on the 6 to 8 IFE and the Cummins, probably from a 10 to about a 19. Yeah, there's a silver piece. It's about yay long, probably about 4, 5 inches long. Got two lines going in it, two hard lines coming out of it. They sell a bypass kit that you want to eliminate that unless you stay in Canada or somewhere up in New York where it's always really frigid. You know what I'm saying? You'll notice that transmission runs around 150, 160 degrees most any weather, any time. And that's going to prolong the life of the fluid, which is going to prolong the hydraulic integrity and the lubricity of the fluid, and it will help the transmission slip far less. because it's always slipping. That's why I tell y'all pre-select fifth gear, ride that thing on the highway, not in overdrive with that heavy ass load on there. Put that thing in fifth, put it in direct drive, and then you can get the maximum amount of torque multiplication with the lightest amount of load being applied to the drivetrain. Okay, next thing on that 68 RFE, if you're gonna pull CDL HotShot and you're gonna shoot at some weight, you're gonna get you a really good trailer and all that stuff. You might get a 30K rated trailer, 25K rated trailer. You finna pull some weight. You know this for a fact. Hydraulic disc brakes on the trailer and all that. Well, that transmission gonna be a problem if you don't drop that transmission and put you a triple disc billet torque converter in it. Because the main 100, well, I say about 80% of the source of heat that happens in the transmission is inside the torque converter due to slippage. And they addressed it in some models where they put a double-sided friction clutch inside of the torque converter, so when it locks, it grabs with twice as much friction material. But why not have 3 times as much? Because you're applying a very hard load on the transmission as it's changing gears. So changing gears generates heat because you're separating 2 clutches and grabbing 2 more clutches together to form a gear change. That provides heat, but once that gear is locked and it doesn't slip, that heat drops and dissipates, and the torque converter, being that it's designed to slip and multiply torque and put it into the drivetrain until the point of lockup, it is providing a lot of heat, a lot of spin, and a lot of slippage. But I'm gonna tell y'all something that you probably ain't never heard nobody tell you about: a regular torque converter and really kind of turning your truck up and deleting the truck and all that old good stuff that some folks do, that we do, that I don't advocate nobody not do. You do what you want to do because it make the truck run better. But when you do stuff like that, and I knew this, I did this to my 2500. That's why I wasn't playing with them. I really running 500 horsepower pulling trailers. I could do 6. I could get 6, and I really was running out of fuel at 600. But I could do 500 horsepower, about 1140, 1180 foot-pounds of torque every single day pulling the trailer because I had triple disc billet torque converter. And a lot of people will say, hey, well, I just got the tune, and they had trans tuning in there. And in most cases with that trans tuning, all they did was hike the line pressure up and tighten up the shifts, which is a really good thing you want to do. But once you up line pressure, you got to understand how a transmission works. The torque converter is spinning the front pump of the transmission. Pressure is only achieved by providing a restriction. So you put a tighter restriction on your power valve in your transmission to up the line pressure, your boost valve. And most time it's not in the valve body, it's in the pump, the boost valve in the pump. You put a different one in there that ups the line pressure. It makes all the clutches grab way harder and your shifts feel way more positive. But at a certain point, when you start to make a lot of power, things start to move. Stuff that will clamp together starts to flex. Trust me, you can feel it in the truck. When you start really making some torque, you can feel that truck. You can feel that drivetrain when you really put pressure on it. So what happens is things start to flex and move, and your torque converter does something that no one ever really talks about a torque converter does. When a whole lot of torque is applied and you up the line pressure like that and you don't have a billet clutch and you got sky high line pressure, it causes torque converter ballooning. It's called ballooning. If you run really fast cars and you know about spraying nitrous in a motor, the kick in the ass that the nitrous gives it, or the kick in the ass that the turbo coming up on 37, 38 pounds of boost gets it when it shifts back a gear, it puts a lot of hydraulic pressure inside of the torque converter, and it makes the torque converter actually want to expand and balloon. And that wouldn't be a problem, but the transmission and the motor bolted together and the torque converter rides in between. So if the torque converter grows and the transmission and the motor are clamped together and you can't make any more space in there, there is a running clearance with a torque converter though. It does float a little bit, but when it grows beyond the amount of float that it has in it, it starts to immediately walk forward. Whole front case gone in worst case scenarios. But what's gonna happen? That's in extreme cases. But what happens on a daily basis? The transmission causes the motor to wear out. And people are like, how the hell you can wear a motor out with a transmission? It's a little something they call thrust. And if you ever hear anybody tell you, I lost a thrust washer, or I mean a thrust bearing in the engine, believe me, the engine didn't kill that thrust bearing. And if you, we ain't gonna go all into engine technology and all that, but if you know how an engine goes together, yes, sir, it pushes the crankshaft forward into that surface of that bearing. But that bearing is not meant to be pressure applied. That's not a oil pressure fed bearing. That's a splash slash residual dropping and windage type of oiling of that particular bearing. The rest of your bearings in the motor got oil pressure. This bearing is just oil soaked. So when you shove the crankshaft forward with hydraulic pressure coming off that torque converter, you start to prematurely wear the thrust washer. Because you got to think about the linear motion of all the parts that are moving inside of your engine. Things only go two ways. Two ways. Up and down or round and round. And that's on an X and a Y axis. Up and down and around and around. Nothing goes forward and backwards. Thrust clearance in a crankshaft is designed for a little bit of movement back and forth. And you have ride clearance that is designed into the engine, maybe 20, 30 thousandths of clearance between each ride to allow that moving forward and backwards. That happens when you press the clutch on a manual. Every time you press the clutch on the manual, you sit there at the light with your foot on the clutch in your truck, you are wearing out the thrust bearing of the engine because you're shoving the clutch plate against the flywheel, and the flywheel it bolts it directly to the crankshaft. It's shoving the crankshaft out the front of the motor, but it's not going to come out the front of the motor because it has all those connected rods connected, and it has a thrust bearing that's there to design for to take momentary pressure for gear changes. Not to sit there and chill with your foot on there, and not to climb a hill for 2, 3 miles with your foot to the floor, applying max torque and making the torque converter expand. So if you got a 68 IFE, you might want to just go and spend the money ahead of time if you know you're gonna do CDL HotShot and actually pull some weight. Put a billet triple D torque converter in there, and when you do the line pressure tuning on the transmission, just go in there and check it and make sure it's not astronomically high. It should be around 200 and something. That's good enough because line pressure puts more pressure on all these parts that are not fortified, billet, or anything like that, because you really haven't went in the transmission. The stuff I'm telling y'all right now that you can do to this transmission, you don't have to do anything but disconnect the transmission from the engine, slide it back, pull the torque converter out the front, fill your new torque converter up with fluid, install the torque converter, slide the transmission back forward, put your drive shaft back on and your motor and your engine transmission mount, and get on away from up under there. Hook your line back up and get on away from up under there. It's an afternoon Saturday type thing that's gonna save yourself $8,000. Now you might have to spend $2,000 to stay off the road in Seattle, Washington, Chicago, Illinois, New York, all the places you could break down. But I think that's a small price to pay when you actually stumbled a little bit and made a slightly off decision on the equipment. But all ain't lost. I just want to help you stay outside the road because that transmission is not really meant for that type of pulling. It's rated to do that, but it ain't gonna do it every day. Not pulling behind 3,500. And the last thing is if you had got this truck and your salesman told you, oh, 373 gear, that's fine. 342 gear, that's fine. You're gonna be able to pull it. It's a dually, it's a diesel, it's got 900 foot-pounds of torque. Don't worry about it. It's, call him back and tell him kiss your ass for telling you that. But we're gonna need you to go in and put 410s in that rear end. And if it's 4-wheel drive, we need you to gear a la all my matter with 68 RFE. We need to get you with that 410 in that front and that back gear, which is gonna take a substantial amount of the load off the clutches in the transmission and prolong the life, and also provide you better acceleration under a load. Don't get 342 because you're gonna be a downshifting fool up that damn thing. And homeboy said he got them 442. That's a little deep for me. That's a kind of a deep gear. It's a little more deep than I like it for cross country running, but it does work. It's not up there with the 488. Now the 488 is gonna be a problem unless you like driving 55 miles an hour all over the country. That 488 is gonna wind that motor up a little higher than we want to see it. But like I said, this for them guys that got 68 RFE in the 2500, 3500 RAM. And like I said, when you go in and do your tuning or whatever, just be moderate with your line pressure, man, because these parts have been known, shafts in the transmission have been known to break under extremely uh, high line pressure in their transmission and seriously over aggressive shifts. Don't just go stick a valve body in it. Don't just go stick a valve body in and a boost valve and think they're gonna be cool and don't really rebuild it. Cause putting a valve body in it ain't gonna do nothing but make it a really, really, really aggressive transmission that shocks the drive line. You don't want to shock it. That's why I said be moderate with your line pressure. Put your nice triple dig clutch in there, and if you can go inside of the transmission tuning and get that torque converter to lock up in second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth instead of just third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, or instead of fourth, fifth, and sixth. If you can go in there and tweak the settings on it and get that torque converter to lock up in third, go ahead and lock up, because the more you letting it spin, the more heat it building, the less it pulling, all that stuff lead. So you lock. All my matter got here lock in every gear, first through whatever, whatever. I don't like to lock it in first. I like to be able to come out soft in first. Because when you lock this torque converter, it locks. And if you elect to go get a triple billet, when it lock, everybody don't know it. Everybody in the truck Nick gonna do this when it lock. Because it's just that strong. It take all the slip out the clutch, out the torque converter. So like I said, with these type of trucks, stuff like this, longevity is the key. You in a race against time, you in a race against your equipment. And like I said, it just came to me. I just want to throw that out there for some guys because a whole lot of people buy 3500 and straight up just got a 3500. This is Cummins. They don't know what's in it. They don't know nothing about it. They just know, hey man, it's a Cummins, it's 3500, but at the same time, 68 IFE, good transmission. I had over 400,000 miles on my CDL, on my non-CDL HotShot with the four Giottos. I had 20 inches on it one time for about a year. Factory tires on it for about another 6 months. I had 22 Ford Giottos on 34s. Uh, big cap on them Forgiato when the Mexicans them had stole it out there in San Antonio. But at the same time, that truck had I was so close to a 500,000 miles. I was at like 470 something, y'all. And I was gonna be at a 500,000 mile coming club, and I was shooting for that million, but they stole it. But like I said, I had fortified that truck. I took time, paid that truck. When I paid that truck out, I fortified that truck and made that truck be what I wanted it to be because I know I was finna retire that truck and it was gonna be a fun ass truck. But those are some things that I did in that last 7, 8 months that I ran that truck with the big old rims on it, knowing that that's a 68 RFE and I'm grossing like 23 some days, 20, 23, 24, 25, real close to 26 some day with a real heavy trailer. And I ain't just the lightest foot person all the time when I got to get where I'm going. So like I said, I did that stuff to that truck. I made a lot of modifications. I spent a lot of money on that truck, but you gotta understand the amount of money that truck made me by keeping me off the side of the road and making me be able to be on the grind all the time, not pulling up late, not being a day late, not always in the shop, and able to really get some money is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Staying off the side of the road. Staying out that bullshit. To the point where, so like I said, if you able to do it, set aside some fun and get ready to do it on your own accord rather than doing it at Billy Joe Bob's shop on the other side of the country where they got their dig out. They finna put it in you. Cause get what? You ain't from there. They don't owe you no favors. And if they don't do the job right, you gonna have to bring it all the way back over there for them to have to hold up for it. So they're not worried about seeing you anymore. You feel me? So they're gonna do whatever they want to do to you. Why not take the time and do these simple things that you can actually do to prevent some stuff from happening? Even because you know from the door, you pick kind of the not so optimal equipment. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people be like, well, just put an icing in it. That's a whole different system. Take a whole different TCM, work with a whole different BCM inside of that truck. It's not an easy swap. Either you order that at the factory or you got to buy a whole nother truck to really get it done right and at an affordable price. 'Cause that's almost a $10,000 transmission. So do this stuff right here by $2,500. And I just told you, by some competent people that could do it, or you could probably do it yourself because this stuff kind of simple on a scale of, besides the rear end and the front end gears, on a scale of 1 to 5, that shit like a 3.5. Everything I'm talking about like a 3.5 because shit just Yep, praying for no breakdowns in the truck. About to hit 100,000. Red River Logistics. Me and all my metal oftentimes talk about this. Uh, you in the golden sweet spot of that truck, but it's called 150K Blue for a reason. And BB King don't sing this. There's some shit that'll have you out there bad. So like right about now, you in the sweet spot where you can get the best money, best gas miles, best everything. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no funny lights that came on, truck performing like a champ. But it's something about these motherfuckers. About 150,000 miles, man. I'm talking about every truck I done seen. Every truck it's gonna be something. It might be big, it might be small, but it's gonna be something. So you just need to be ready. Turbo actuator. You guys, you might want to go to the dealership and get that whole little foam cleaning or whatever they do. Try and prolong the life of that variable geometry turbo because they're about $6,000. And I know from experience. But like I said, I'm gonna holler at y'all. I thought about that. I thought about y'all. I said, man, somebody need to hit that because they ride with that 3,500. They got 16,000 pounds on the dick right now. And the trailer weigh 10. So that 26 behind the truck, that weigh 8. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what that is. 34. That 34,000 pounds behind the same transmission that's on a 2,500 Dodge. So when you think about adding up growth weight and what it's pulling, and you got to go up the hills and all that crazy downshift and all that stuff, you might owe it to yourself. Go get you a nice little torque converter. You might want to put your little boost valve in that thing. Little rear end gear action. Little rear end gear action, Riverside relaxing. You might want to do that. And you know what I'm saying? Your truck will thank you. And like I said, it's gonna run cooler. Get that thermostat bypass. Go ahead and put that on there. If you run it anywhere below really I-80 all year long, shit, anything below I-90, it won't be cold all the time to the point where let the transmission cool off. Get that thing a break. But like I said, man, it been great. Glad to see y'all in here. I appreciate everybody. And y'all have a blessed day.